Let's get it. Mike Sempervive here with you for the next hour talking about professional wrestling, which is something we do every single day here on the Sports Byline Broadcasting Network. Tune in, iHeart, American Forces Radio, sportsbyline.com, over-the-air affiliates like KMAV and 99 KMSR, podcast, replay on SiriusXM, or video streaming on Twitch or YouTube. However you're joining me today, I'd just like to say thank you. Hopefully it's sunny outside. If not, hopefully it's sunny inside your mind. How could it not be sunny inside your mind right now if you're a professional wrestling fan? It is WrestleMania weekend. It is here. It has already started. A ton of events took place yesterday. There is a ton of events taking place today. If you go to the voicesofwrestling.com, or our friends over there, they have a list of every single event that is taking place this weekend. 20 shows Thursday, 20 shows today, 6 shows tomorrow, and then 3 on Sunday. No, WrestleMania is not alone on Sunday either. There are shows taking place. There are conventions taking place. There are meet and greets taking place, concerts, a ton of stuff going on in and around Los Angeles, and we will get into some of the stuff that has already happened, as well as getting into some of the things that are to happen. I'll take a look at the NXT show a little bit later on and give you my predictions on what's going to take place there, as well as what's going to happen at WrestleMania. But we also have a lot of news to get into. Nick Khan appeared on CNBC, and Vince McMahon is back as an employee at World Wrestling Entertainment. I'll talk a little bit about that when we get back from break. Wrestling Observer Live.
It's definitely something I will remember for the rest of my life. Just like hearing that 1, 2, 3, the bell, and like the fans going crazy. Like it was like a dream. Like it was an amazing feeling. Like I've never performed in front of a crowd that was that energetic and had that many people in the stadium. So it was really cool. And I was just really happy that like people were behind me, like, because nobody knew who I was. And just to have the fans have my back like they did that night, it was very special, because it doesn't happen very often, moments like that. So I was cool to like be the guy in that situation.
What was your reaction when they told you, like, hey, this is what's going to go down? You're going to go out there and you're going to have a match with Jericho on this big show. And then on top of that, you're going to be the one to go over. Like, what were you thinking? What was your reaction to that? And what was your like moment before you went out onto the actual, to do the actual matchup?
Yeah, it was a lot, because I really didn't think that that's what I was going to be doing that day. Like I just randomly got like called to like be there, but like I figured it'd be for some reason, because like they were flying me out. Like any other time I've been to AEW, it's been like fairly local to me, and this was in Texas, which wasn't at all. And when they told me, I really couldn't believe it. It felt too good to be true. Like I was very like grateful to like first find out that I was going to be wrestling Chris Jericho. Like that's a huge thing itself. And then when I found out I was going over, it really felt too good to be true. And like a lot of things were just going on in my head. I started getting like a little bit of like nerves, but excitement, and just, wanting to tell everybody, but I couldn't. And yeah, it was just, I just took some time to myself after, got all my nerves out, like told myself this is happening. Like, we're going to go out there, we're going to do this, we're going to crush it. Like you're here for a reason. You're in this situation for a reason. And yeah, just went out there, and whew, I get like fired up just thinking about that night right now. It was, me and Chris, we made magic happen out there, and we made a very, very special moment. And like he's the one that, made it for me.
What feedback did you get after that match, and what feedback have you been getting? Because you've really been, thrusted into the spotlight in AEW, and, you're now one of the guys that definitely consider, a rising star. So for you, like, what has the feedback been like from either Jericho, Tony Khan, or anybody else in AEW?
One of the biggest things I've honestly been told is to enjoy everything that's going on. Like that, like I've been told that a lot. Like, don't take any of this for granted right now. Like, don't get too caught up in all the other, stuff that comes with this. Like, just have fun and enjoy what's going on.
Welcome back to the show. Mike Sempervive here with you, Wrestling Observer Live. You know we do this show for an hour at a time, but if you want us 24/7, you can try to find us on Twitter. I am at Sempervive. Filthy Tom Lawler, because I still have his name listed here, is at Filthy Tom Lawler. You already know that, though. The timeline for this show is at WONF4W. The broadcaster is at Sports Byline USA. And if you want to wish the boss man well on his travels, you can get a hold of him at Bryan Alvarez. Last time I had contact with him was about an hour ago, and he was on his way to the airport. So hopefully for his sake, he is up in the air right now and gets all of his WrestleMania festivities started. And, you know, when he was talking yesterday about what he was going to be doing, I don't think he factored in Los Angeles traffic. But we'll see how it goes. Just stick to his Twitter. Become a super follower. He would really like that. I don't know when he is going to be back on the air. I believe it will be with Dave Meltzer after tomorrow's show. I believe that's when it would be, at least. And then he's going to be back for sure, of course, after Sunday's show. And he might even be back here on Monday. Just all depends on when his flight gets back. But a lot to talk about today. Man, it was a busy night last night. Do the wrestling news, which you can find at thewrestlingnews.com or Wrestling News AV on Twitter. And I was up till about 2:30 in the morning trying to accumulate all of the news and the results and all that sort of stuff. Me and Brian Solomon and a couple of other people. And I mean, there were shows that hadn't even started yet. The For the Culture show didn't start till 3 o'clock in the morning East Coast time, and it's going to be the same way tonight for the GCW Emo Fight show that's going to be taking place. And I'm sure we're going to get into some of that stuff as well as everything else that's taking place a little bit later on in the program. But don't know if you saw this information bandied out there today, but Vince McMahon is once again an official employee of WWE as he entered into an employment agreement with the company last Wednesday, according to an SEC filing. The agreement calls for McMahon to remain on as the executive chairman for a 2-year period with an annual salary of $1.2 million, a target bonus of 175%, and an annual stock grant for a total value of $4.3 million. McMahon also received stock awards in the amount of $4.703 million. McMahon will also be eligible for a severance package if WWE terminates him without cause or if he terminates the employment agreement for a good reason. As in, I'm leaving, give me my money. As part of the agreement, McMahon retains the rights to his intellectual property and life story, including his likeness and name, in perpetuity. So, Vince McMahon officially back in WWE. I'll dovetail that into company CEO Nick Khan appearing on CNBC's Closing Bell Overtime yesterday with Morgan Brennan, addressing a range of topics ahead of WrestleMania, which he characterized as the kickoff of the company's new media rights negotiations. And I really like Brennan in the times that I've seen her do interviews. She is very direct and to the point. She seems to be very, very well prepped when it comes to talking to Khan. It's not just very basic things or gushing over the company like Jim Cramer was doing. She seems to kind of like cut right down to the bone of the question, and she did that with Nick Khan yesterday, you know, talking about the $9 billion evaluation. And she did also bring up Vince McMahon's name and the way he is trying to work himself back into the company. And we've heard Nick Khan say over and over again, well, you know, he's there, but he's not really doing anything. Remember, that was Nick Khan, by the way, one of the guys that voted against Vince coming back. But we'll get to that in a minute, too. But I'll just go ahead and play the clip here of Brennan talking to Nick Khan about Vince, and a very pointed way of asking the question with a lot of information here, seemingly. So, producer Daniel, if you have that queued up, could you go ahead and play it?
It's there. It's not playing. Byline, of course.
These things happen. So hopefully we can get that thing queued up. But she flat out asked him, hey, there's a lot of rumors going around. There's a lot of talk going around that Vince is trying to work his way back into the company, and he's being involved in creative. And it seemed to take Nick by surprise, frankly, because he said no, and then he pivoted, and he became Filibuster Jones. He tried to switch the subject and ask Brennan, well, are you going to be watching this weekend? And as she's, kind of like, no, I'll just be checking it out here from New York, he kind of like gathered himself and said, no, he is not going to be a part of creative. We're very happy with the way things are going, and obviously, that runs diametrically opposed to some of the things we've been hearing over the last couple of weeks, including some of the feelings from some of the talent and some of the worries that they have.
Okay, I got him.
Oh, perfect. Good. So she can do a better job asking her question than I can reviewing it. So here's Morgan Brennan talking to talking to Nick Khan yesterday on CNBC.
I mean, there's still so much focus on him in the industry and this company.
Freaking Byline computers.
He's going to be there in LA for WrestleMania this weekend. Has he been getting more involved in the creative process?
No is the answer to that. But are you going to be there this weekend at WrestleMania? Or are you passing on this one?
Sadly, I will not be there. I'll be watching from here in New York, keeping an eye on the situation.
Watch on Peacock, who has our U.S. Domestic rights. As you know, Vince has not interfered with creative. He certainly has thoughts, again, that we all try to tap into.
He has thoughts that they like to try to tap into, and went on to say that Triple H, no, he's firmly in control there. And it was amusing. At least I kind of thought it was amusing that once he got finished and wrapped up, Brennan just went, yeah, let's move on to the palace intrigue when it comes to Stephanie McMahon. But again, she can do a better job stating her question than I can trying to state it for her. So, producer Daniel, please go ahead and play clip 2.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of palace intrigue as well about the departure of your now former co-CEO, Stephanie McMahon, who resigned as her father returned to the company earlier this year to help negotiate those rights in that sale. Why did she leave?
Do keep in mind, Stephanie was on a leave of absence when we called her. It was Vince and I who called her together to ask her to come back from that leave of absence to fill in at the time as the interim chairperson. She then became the co-CEO, as you just articulated, and the chairperson of the board. She did phenomenal work across the board. And when Vince came back, I think she went back to what she was thinking of doing on the leave of absence. She stepped down. She and I remain in touch.
Yep, the leave of absence. The leave of absence that originally took place in May of 2022, where she announced that she was leaving as chief brand officer. And, she said while she was taking leave, she looked forward to returning one day, and Nick Khan was going to take over most of her day-to-day duties, and, or at least those were going to be spread out. Nick Khan would take on the big stuff, and that was going to be that. And then 4 days later, WWE posted a listing to fill Stephanie's position, and then about a month after that, a article came out from Business Insider where they basically indicated that Stephanie McMahon was kind of was taken out in a shakeup, and we weren't seeing growth. And when somebody's moved out of a company, it's usually the result of something not working. We took stronger control of that a few months ago. And then, yes, of course, she was miraculously called back. She somehow became the person that should be the co-COO of the company, with Nick Khan being right there, with Triple H right there, with everybody else there. They call Stephanie back, and now she goes again. And my question is, why did she leave? And in fact, why did she leave the first time? Was it really to go away, or was it because something else was taking place there? And I would love for somebody to ask that question the same way that Morgan Brennan did. But what I would also like is for somebody like Morgan Brennan in the mainstream of the news, and especially in the mainstream of the business news, to ask why he's even back in the first place, considering that he settled on a rape charge or a rape allegation that he said he would never settle for a woman that was asking for $11.75 million. And even though the Wall Street Journal says that it was a lot less than that, the fact of the matter is that comes at a time where he was being sued in another case that people had heard about a tanning spa and a massage parlor where the boyfriend of a guy ended up coming after him with a pipe. And then you have the paralegal affair, and then you have everything else that happened, including a $7.5 million payment to a former worker who was coerced into sex and then demoted when she recoiled. Somebody needs to really start asking that question who's got a much bigger megaphone than I do. We'll be back. Wrestling Observer Live.
What was it like going to those early tours in Mexico when you're still not yet accepted? And, like you mentioned, kind of those barriers that you were kind of going through. What was the difference in terms of going then to those early trips in Mexico and then now when you're going to Mexico? Obviously, totally different.
Yeah, completely. Totally. My first time that I went, so they used to run these really big Lucha Libre shows here in Chicago at the Congress Theater with like these super names like Wagner, Parka, Demon, anybody you can think of. So I was performing in front of like 2,000 or 3,000 people at 17 years old and meeting all these people. And I was playing a heel. I was throwing tortillas at the crowd. I caught the attention of one of the mega stars of CMLL at the time, whose name is Tarzan Boy. And this story is pretty crazy. I'll take you through it. He hands me a piece of paper with a lot of phone numbers on it. He's like, please call me, because I was telling him I want to go to Mexico someday. He's like, when you get there, please call me. He didn't really speak any English. So I held on to that piece of paper for a long time until I graduated high school. I said, you know what, worked out like a crazy madman. I'm going to Mexico. Finally get to Mexico. I get all the way down there. I don't speak a lick of Spanish at this point. And I just stay at the hotel that he had maybe mentioned, and it's kind of close to Arena, Mexico. And I called the number once, called the number twice, and there's no answer. And I said, oh my God, I'm in a foreign country. This guy isn't answering. It was probably a fake number. I don't even know how to dial all these numbers, so I was probably dialing it wrong. And I don't leave my hotel room for 3 full days because I am terrified that I'm going to get kidnapped and or whatever else they do to foreigners that I thought back then, right? I stayed in my room for 3 days. I got room service for 3 days. And I took the phone number down to the front desk, and I had them call, and he finally answers. So I'm 17 years old. He finally answers. He comes to pick me up. We start to train in Arena, Mexico with the top guys. Now, you got to understand, at this time, I didn't know who anybody was. But now looking back, it was the class that everybody's trying to be in, with Ultimo Guerrero, Virus, Mystico, everybody that you can imagine. And I'm rolling around with them at 17, which is just unheard of now. And I'll never forget, like, one of those classes, we went down into the ring in the middle of Arena Mexico, man, and I was like, this is where I'm trying to be. It's just incredible, the trajectory that this path that I've taken. And I want to go back to you. I wanted to bring it all back to your question. Going back to my start and going into the locker rooms and not knowing the language, obviously very nervous, uneasy, trying to be accepted, to now I go into these locker rooms and I'm completely accepted, respected, and people are eager to work with me. So it's just a complete 180 for sure.
Back on the show, Mike Sempervive here with you, Wrestling Observer Live, WrestleMania Friday. As we head into the weekend, the big boss man, Bryan Alvarez, will be back with me on Monday, possibly, more likely on Tuesday when it gets right down to it. I'm sure he's going to be exhausted, and God knows when that flight is coming back on Monday. So just hold tight. If you really want to hear what he has to say, don't worry. WrestlingObserver.com has got you covered. He and Dave Meltzer reviewing both nights of WrestleMania, as well as the NXT show, which I do want to bring up a little bit later on. But yeah, I wish somebody with a bigger megaphone could actually try to explain this and ask them as directly as Morgan Brennan would ask those questions to Nick Khan, like, why is he back? I mean, I know, again, there's somebody needs to hold their feet to the fire on this a lot more. Again, this is not just like a serial adulterer, you know, or a serial womanizer. This is a guy that uses power as a quid pro quo for sex. And he is, again, the NDAs are right there. The things that he has been accused of is right there. The things that he has apparently settled with are right. They're all right there. They were all so concerned about what could come out if he came back that they unanimously voted for that dude not to come back. And now it's like, we really need Vince here, all this wisdom. Somebody needs to do a better job of this, because if it's left up to the stockholders, nothing will happen. Why? Because they make money. And WrestleNomics had an exclusive today. The WWE is receiving more than $1.5 million in subsidies from the very wealthy government of Puerto Rico for Backlash. WWE is receiving this subsidy plus an additional $300,000 in-kind contribution to run the event in San Juan on May 6th. According to Mariela Valinas, Mariela Valinas, Executive Director of the Puerto Rico Conventions District Authority. This is what she told WrestleNomics and Brandon Thurston. Both the Puerto Rico Convention District Authority and the Puerto Rico Tourism Company will contribute significantly, although the Convention Authority is adding to the agreement the use of the venue as an additional in-kind portion, end quote. The Coliseo de Puerto Rico Jose Miguel Argalat will host Backlash as well as SmackDown the night before, marking the first televised events in Puerto Rico since 2005. Valinas also noted that there was no bidding process for Backlash, but that WWE had received interest from other cities. She says, quote, We are under the understanding that other cities were interested in hosting the event, unquote, she said. WWE has a history of soliciting bids for WrestleMania, citing economic benefits to the host region. This was definitely the case for San Antonio. WrestleNomics goes on to say that both the WWE and the Puerto Rico Tourism Company did not respond to requests for comment. So, a subsidized trip to Puerto Rico, and I thought this is, and look, as far as a entertainment event coming to Puerto Rico, I think it's going to be great. I think the celebration of Bad Bunny and all that's probably going to take place. I think that's going to be great. The wrestling industry down there is about as low as it can get right now as far as visibility, and things really, really shaking there. And WWE going down there, it's bound to help, but with everything else that island needs, for them to come off $1.5 million to WWE to go down there is something. But then again, as I mentioned, this is why a lot of people like to turn the other way when it comes to some of this stuff with Vince McMahon, because they are making money hand over fist. Going to pivot now to a different type of pettiness. Shawn Michaels, actually to the pettiness, because there was nothing petty about what I said before, even though I may have said it in some petty terms. But Shawn Michaels says booking NXT Battleground for Memorial Day weekend had nothing to do with AEW's Double or Nothing. Oh, sure it did not. WWE announced yesterday, and this is up for anybody that wants to see it over on WrestlingObserver.com. WWE announced that the next NXT Premium Live event following Stand and Deliver will take place May 28th in Lowell, Massachusetts. Takes place on the same day as AEW's annual May pay-per-view, and one day after the King and Queen of the Ring tournaments in Saudi Arabia. Shawn Michaels went on Ariel Helwani's show and asked if the date was chosen to go up against AEW's pay-per-view, and Michaels responded, quote, No, look, I'll say this. From a holiday standpoint, that's the thing. In the past, we've done well on the holidays, so it's my understanding that's why we did that. It's no different than, we used to do our stuff back in the day on Christmas and on Thanksgiving. Oh, yes, I remember how you used to do things on Thanksgiving. You put Survivor Series on where Starrcade was going to be and caused a big hullabaloo that way. But, of course, that wasn't pettiness either, naturally. Dave Meltzer addressed this situation in Friday's Wrestling Observer newsletter, writing, quote, "The key is that the show is probably going head-to-head with AEW's Double or Nothing show in Las Vegas. One could say it's a coincidence, but if you follow the history, it indicates that it wouldn't be the case that WWE," and this is the other thing from yesterday, WWE arranged a Shawn Michaels press conference head-to-head with the same time AEW or Ring of Honor's press conference was taking place with Tony Khan. It was noted yesterday when it was talked about, and Dave noted it in the newsletter, there has not been a starting time announced for the show, which is what is leading people to believe that this is not going to be a show that's coming on in the afternoon, that it is going to be a show that is going head up with AEW. So we'll see what ends up shaking out there. We know what Tony Khan thought about it last year when it happened. I'm sure he's thinking the same things this time. We'll see if he comes out and says it. Also, on the front page of the WrestlingObserver.com website, a plan to bring back CM Punk to AEW had been in the works, but it's unknown where things currently stand. Dave Meltzer reported in Friday's Wrestling Observer newsletter that Tony Khan wanted Punk back in the company. An agreement on reconciliation had been reached, but it's not clear how Punk's Instagram comments from last week may have impacted the situation. Meltzer wrote, quote, "The situation with Punk became a bigger story this week when he put up an Instagram post where he went off on Tony Khan, Jon Moxley, myself, and Chris Jericho, which he immediately took down. This came while sides were working on a reconciliation that was at least in principle agreed to, per the decision of Khan, who wanted him back," end quote. Meltzer continued to suggest Punk's planned return may have been what led to reports that AEW is looking to book the United Center rather than the Now Arena in Chicago for All Out this year. While a reconciliation pact was in the works, Meltzer says the situation with Punk and AEW is now uncertain. What was left out there was the fact that Punk was responding to a Dave Meltzer post in his forum, and probably to the two radio shows before that where Dave gave his opinion on the rumors that Punk had his toe dipped back in the water. After all of that stuff blew up, we found out, Fightful Select reported it, other people had noted it as well too, that it seemed to be that it wasn't just Punk's toe in the water, that throughout the entire time, conversations may have been taking place, and it looked as though those feelings were being reciprocated by Tony Khan. Now we have this here, where it was obviously the case that Tony Khan wanted CM Punk back, and this is where things currently stand. And why did Punk pull down that post? Did he do it because he knew it was a bad idea and decided to pull it down, or got backlash for it? Was it because he violated something where it came to AEW's and social media and putting business out there? I don't know. And at the end of the day, look, if you're a pure wrestling fan, if you're just a wrestling fan and you look at things, I watch my show and I'm good, and I know that's usually not the people that are listening to this show for the most part. You're the most hardcore, obviously, but if you don't care about any of the other stuff, yeah, you want Punk back. You do. You want the Bucks there, you want Omega, you want Punk, you want Moxley, you want Hangman, you want this, you want everybody. You're a fan. You want to see big stars do things, and CM Punk is certainly not what he used to be, but he's more than serviceable. So, I think he would be fine out there, but the problem comes with, I don't know why he would want to be back there. I don't know, other than the money, as a man, after being just emasculated at the press conference. As a man, if I'm Tony Khan, I don't think I want him back. Obviously, there's a whole side of a locker room that is not going to be comfortable with it. I don't see how this works for anybody. I really, really don't. Especially for a guy like CM Punk when you do have other options out there. And Tony Khan, frankly, you got a whole roster full of options that you can concentrate on as well. There's some actual wrestling this weekend that's taken place and is going to take place, and I'm going to talk about that next on Wrestling Observer Live.
Question number 1. What was your first job?
At a restaurant.
What was your, like, were you like the bus boy? Like, what did you have to do?
Food prep, and I did a little bit of dishwashing. It sucked, and I didn't do it for long.
Question number 2. What has been the most difficult move to learn?
Not really many difficult moves. I hate to sound like cocky, but I don't think I've.
Hey, if that's your answer, that's your answer. You're like, I could do it all.
Maybe like I don't know. That maybe like a satellite DDT, if anything. But
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Question number 3. What's one thing outside wrestling that you're a big fan of?
SpongeBob.
Are you really?
Oh yeah, watch it like every night.
Oh my God. Okay, so I gotta ask you because one of my addictions is SpongeBob memes all the time. There's like Facebook pages about it, and I will spend hours scrolling through them.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I recite SpongeBob all the time.
Favorite SpongeBob character then?
Definitely SpongeBob. He's the man.
Excited. Who are you the most nervous or most excited to meet or wrestle in wrestling?
There's a lot. There's a couple guys, so I'm a little nervous and excited to meet. But like who I haven't met yet.
Either or, like ones that you haven't met yet or ones that you did meet already.
Okay, yeah, it was pretty nerve-wracking meeting Sting. That was pretty cool.
How was that interaction like?
It was just it was fairly quick, just like, hey, like nice to meet you. Like he had his whole face paint on, he had stuff to do. It was just a quick pass and go, but I definitely there's certain guys I have to build myself up to go up to, still. Like
I get it. You're like, oh my God, I'm co-workers with Sting. Press on with the day. Question number 5. What's your ultimate dream match?
So many, but right now I'm just throw out Bryan Danielson.
Hell yeah. Oh my God, that would be incredible. Question number 6. If you weren't a wrestler, what do you think you would be doing?
Something in wrestling. Being a referee. I don't know. Maybe I'd try out like UFC fighting or something like that, but yeah.
Question number 7. Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
I have a little bit of both. It definitely depends on like the situation I'm in and like what's going on with my day, but I can definitely be more like extroverted most of the time.
Question number 8. What's one bad habit you're currently trying to break?
Being late.
Question number 9. What is your food Mount Rushmore? So like 4 food items that you're like, this is what I consider just delicious stuff, man.
Here's a quick answer. Chicken, steak, donuts, and lasagna.
Oh, hell yeah. It's all good stuff.
My food Rushmore is like 20 heads, by the way.
Question number 10, last one. What is your all-time favorite movie?
The Hangover.
Back on the show, Mike Sempervive here with your Wrestling Observer Live. It is Friday. Don't worry, we will be here live tomorrow as well. Jim Valley will be on the program as he always is, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And then, of course, Andrew Zarian will get you ready 6 p.m. on Sunday for that version of Wrestling Observer Live. And then, of course, Bryan and I will take you through next week. Hey, if you want all of the news, and usually I say, it's 5 to 15 minutes every day. This one damn near pushing 20 minutes, the wrestling news today. If you just need to get up in the morning, you need a quick recap of everything that took place, all of the major events that took place at all of these shows that are going on all over Los Angeles, don't worry, we will have you covered with that. Go to thewrestlingnews.com or on Twitter or Facebook at Wrestling News AV. AEW ratings from Wednesday night. Second lowest audience of the year, 833,000 people, according to Showbuzz Daily, down from last week's audience of 954,000. The key 18 to 49-year-old demographic was down from last week as well, 365,000 viewers, down 69,000, but it's still ranked number 4 for the evening in the key demo on cable TV. Their biggest problem on Wednesday was the fact that it looks like the NBA just kicked their teeth in. They really did. Went head-to-head with the first game on ESPN between Dallas and Philadelphia. That was third for the night on cable, drew over 1.4 million viewers and a .44 in the 18 to 49-year-old demographic. And I saw that Brandon Thurston from WrestleNomics has posted the quarter-hour breakdown. The show opened with 962,000 viewers, then went down to 881,000, and that's kind of the way you should really look at these ratings, after that lead in. Okay, what were you left with? That's pretty much what you're starting with. And by the end of the show, that was down to 719,000 viewers. It was a dip the entire time. So that could have very well been due to the second game starting up on ESPN, as well as the fact that, yes, there was Adam Cole and there was Daniel Garcia, and you did have the show that was coming on afterwards, the All Access show, which, by the way, finished 30th in the demographic, too. It got a .11, I believe it was. But there's a lot of stuff that was taking place, and if people were going, okay, look, I can check out of this now and pick it up because I'm going to be watching another 75 hours of WrestleMania and other assorted events this weekend, that really wouldn't surprise me either. I have a feeling this number will be bouncing back next week, almost surely. Forget about what's happening here. Whatever is happening in Canada needs to continue to stick, because Post Wrestling reported that there were 184,700 English language viewers on TSN2. Once again, third straight week in a row they do a big number, and third straight week in a row that they were over 100,000 people in the key demographic in Canada, which is 25 to 54 years old. So I don't know what exactly the reason is there. There have been no real hypothesis as to why all of a sudden that number is spiking in Canada, but it is continuing to do incredibly well. There's a taped Rampage on tonight, which I pray for that number. It's going to be miserable. I cannot believe that the number tonight may not be the lowest it may ever be. I mean, you have, right after SmackDown, you have the Hall of Fame that's taking place on Peacock and WWE Network. You have a Ring of Honor pay-per-view, which is taking place right during it, as well as so much other stuff that is going to be going on, as well as the start of Major League Baseball, the NBA. There are NHL hockey games as we are going into the playoffs there, so March Madness still going. There is a ton of stuff going on where I don't know what this number is going to do tonight for Rampage, but if it ends up being the lowest it's ever done, I will not be surprised. SmackDown is going to be live on Fox, Crypto.com Arena in LA, also where Raw is going to be on Monday. Obviously, the go-home build to WrestleMania 39, Cody Rhodes and undisputed WWE champion Roman Reigns will appear in a face-to-face in their final meeting before Sunday. Also announced for the show, Sheamus and Drew McIntyre against Giovanni Vinci and Ludwig Kaiser of Imperium, as well as the 9th annual Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, with everybody on the card that you would think would be there, like Top Dollar and Santos Escobar and Madcap Moss and Mustafa Ali, Humberto, Ashante Diadonis. Yes, everybody that does not have a big match, with the exception of Bobby Lashley, whose big match was just randomly dropped. Brock Lesnar is going to lose to Omos. I'm telling you. That's what's going to happen here. That's the feeling that I'm getting right now. With Bobby Lashley kind of being in purgatory right now and being in this match, unless they have something set up where he wins and he's attacked by Uncle Howdy and Bray Wyatt or something like that, ain't nothing going to happen with that match. Which means Lashley's going to get some revenge on Brock Lesnar for kicking him low, and he's going to help Omos win, and that'll be the last we see of Brock Lesnar for about 6 months or so before he comes back looking for revenge at the Royal Rumble or SummerSlam, or more likely some event in Saudi Arabia. Immediately following SmackDown, as I mentioned, is the Hall of Fame. Rey Mysterio is going to be the headliner and inducted by Conan. Will they do an angle with Dominic Mysterio? Very, very possible. I don't see why they wouldn't, but we'll see what happens. The Great Muta being inducted by Ric Flair, Andy Kaufman, and still possibly being inducted the way it should be. He should be inducted by Jerry Lawler as long as Lawler is up for it. So we'll see. Stacy Keibler is being inducted, and there is still no word on who it is going to be. The rumors have been out there that is going to be Mick Foley. That would really only make sense. He is out in L.A. We've seen him with pictures. So, oh, by the way, my question was answered yesterday where I said, where is Shinsuke Nakamura? Apparently taking pictures with Hiroshi Tanahashi at a restaurant. So Hiroshi Tanahashi, Shinsuke Nakamura. Unfortunately, we could not get the third musketeer in the picture with Katsuyori Shibata, but Shinsuke Nakamura alive and well. I would like to see him back on TV, on WWE's TV, or anybody's for that matter. But Tim White also is going to receive the Warrior Award presented by Dana Warriors. So that is taking place on Peacock and the WWE Network as soon as SmackDown wraps up tonight. Man, I don't know how much everybody was able to see yesterday. I almost opened up the phone lines today, but I knew it was going to be way too packed with news. But as I mentioned, technically, of all sorts of different kinds, there were 20 shows yesterday and 20 again today. One of those shows yesterday, GCW presented Josh Barnett's Bloodsport from the Ukrainian Cultural Center in Los Angeles. That's where all of the GCW events are going to be taking place. It is a hellish place to try to get audio out of. That is a constant problem there. They seemingly always have some sort of connectivity issue of some kind, whether it be microphones or video or whatever it is. It's the Ukrainian Cultural Center. It's not exactly the offices of Microsoft or Apple or something like that, but it's apparently a pretty good place to run a show if you're a company, if you're GCW. And Kota Ibushi, that's the biggest story. The former IWGP World Heavyweight Champion made his return to a canvas mat. Don't want to say to a ring, but to a canvas mat, and he defeated Speedball Mike Bailey, his first wrestling work in 17 months, his first match since October 21st, 2021, when he injured his shoulder during the finals of the G1 Climax against Kazuchika Okada. From there, it has been nothing but high drama between he and New Japan. Got nasty at one point, but made his appearance. He's going to be making an appearance tonight against Joey Janela on Spring Break number 7. But the main event of that show saw Josh Barnett for the very first time tap out on his own show, losing to Timothy Thatcher. If he was going to tap to anybody, I would have liked for it to have been Tom Lawler. But hey, Timothy Thatcher gets to duke over him. Jon Moxley also appeared on the show, and what was really one of the matches that got a lot of attention, not only because it was, Jon Moxley, but because it was a pretty darn good match, apparently, between him and Alex Coughlin. He put Coughlin to sleep with the Darce choke. Johnny Bloodsport, the kickboxing John Hennigan, made his Bloodsport debut, defeating Royce Isaacs. And that's Bloodsport's just a really fun show. I really, really like that show every year. It's different. You get to see people in, like Filthy Tom Lawler and guys like, Harry Smith and dudes like that. They get to really be in their element and do, things that they absolutely love, catch wrestling and incorporating all sorts of mixed martial arts in. And then you get to see dudes like Calvin Tankman and Bad Dude Tito and Eric Hammer and just these big dudes just beating the hell out of each other like it's a callback to the olden days of Pride, where you'd have, Tom Erickson and Don Fry and dudes like that out there. So always get a kick out of that show. I'm going to look forward to seeing that one. I have to catch back up on a lot of stuff. Got to catch back up on the Hitchcock Memorial show, which got a lot of attention yesterday as well, too, because of Vikingo being in the main event against Taurus and Commander. All three guys can do just absolutely amazing things. Vikingo retains the AAA Mega title by pinning Taurus after a springboard 630 moonsault. It's amazing. You see the same names over and over on these cards. Speedball Mike Bailey. Jeff Cobb worked a bunch yesterday, too. The United Empire team of Cobb, Mark Davis, and Kyle Fletcher defeated the Motor City Machine Guns and Kushida on that show. That was some of the biggest stuff on there. Although it should be noted as well, too, Filthy Tom Lawler did team up with Christopher Daniels, who filled in for an injured Josh Alexander. As those two gentlemen, unfortunately, Filthy's losing streak continues in tag team matches. They lost to Kenta and Bryan Keith, although it wasn't Bryan's fault this time, Tom. It was kind of your fault and whatever you and Daniels had planned. You see, Ken Shamrock was the special enforcer for that match. And you know what? Daniels tried to bump Shamrock out of the way. Filthy tried to throw a low blow and get the pin. Shamrock said he wasn't having any of that. He and Daniels got to arguing. He shoved Daniels. He went into Tom. Kenta rolled him up. Shamrock counted the pin, and that was that. And then to make matters worse, Filthy Tom was put into an ankle lock, and he tapped out. Hard times for Filthy Tom. It got a little bit worse, too, later on in the night because, at the New Japan and Impact show, he also lost on that show in part of the 8-man tag team match between Eddie Edwards, Joe Hendry, and J.R. Kratos, a natural tag team, those four men. They lost to Fred Rosser, Alex Coughlin, Callahan, all caps, Sami Callahan, and PCO. So that show, I was surprised, and I know DJ Convoy, our friend in the forum here and a very good friend to the Mid-Atlantic Championship podcast, he was one of the guys that was kind of disappointed by this show, and he's not the only one. Was not a bad show. Need to make sure that comes across, but it was, not as hyped as expected, and unfortunately not having Mickie James hurt that a little bit, certainly not having Josh Alexander hurt that, because I was really looking for it, as a lot of people probably were, to Josh Alexander and Kushida. He is excellent. His 335-day Impact title reign, unfortunately, has come to an end right before they were supposed to go back to Toronto for the Rebellion show. So Kushida and Steve Macklin will face off for the Impact Championship coming up on April 16th, I believe it is, for Rebellion. So got a little bit more to cover. Actually, we got a lot more to cover, but I only have a little bit more time to do it, and we'll do it when we get back. Wrestling Observer Live.
And it was also funny because ROH, when I was younger, was like shows I would go to and joke like, oh, if I wanted to choose like anywhere to be, I would want to be here. And it's crazy to think about because there was such like a vibe to ROH, and I feel like has that vibe again, and it's just even bigger than what it was before. And I'm just so grateful that I was able to be a part of it. And I also messed with a bunch of like the guys who've been on ROH for a minute. And I posted the picture of me like super young hanging out with like Maria Kanellis in the Kingdom when I was like just a baby. And I was like, yeah, I used to go to shows and watch you guys, and now you have to work with me.
Oh my God, what did they say? What was their reaction to that?
Everybody was like, you make me feel old. And I even joked with Bryce, the ref. He was like, yeah, I was looking at your social media and I saw the post and I was like, oh my God, I ref those shows. She's a child. And I was like, I had to grow up. I'm sorry. I'm still so young, and nobody, like, they're like, we love it, but you just make us feel old sometimes. You can't do this to us. I truly think that the women's community is super, super, like, protective and caring about one another, and truly wanting to see people grow. And it's funny because everybody wants to say, oh, we're competing for a spot. There's only a certain number of spots on shows. And I'm like, oh yeah, I get that, but we don't get better without each other. And that's the truth in wrestling. We need each other. You can't have a match by yourself. You need an opponent.
Exactly. So for you, who are some of the women that you feel you've like really connected with, that you either helped you out in your journey, that you just really kind of bonded with, or that you take inspiration from?
Definitely Jessica Havoc. She's an amazing woman, has helped me very early on my career, and even now. Ruby Soho, she's an amazing person, and if I message her, she'll answer any of my questions. No matter how goofy or crazy it is, she'll take the time and be like, yeah, I can help Billie out. I'm one of those people. I'm like, hey, what are you doing? I have this really weird question about wrestling, and it will be like completely random topic that we have never talked about before, and then we'll go into like a sidebar conversation when I'm like, hey, you when's the next time I see you? Do you want to see this kid do a 450 off the AC unit? She's like, what are you talking about?
Back on the show, Mike Sempervive here with you, Wrestling Observer Live. I tell you what, it's crazy. Talked about a ton of things today. It doesn't even feel like I've scratched the surface. I didn't even get a chance to run down what I thought was going to happen for the NXT show tomorrow. And let me tell you something. If you're on the West Coast, remember to get up early, have brunch, have breakfast with because it's before brunch time. It's 9:45 in the morning, Western time, Pacific time. NXT Stand and Deliver. I'm taking Carmelo Hayes, even though, look, Hayes should probably be on the main roster before Braun Breaker. They should both be on the main roster, but I'll say Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker wins. Carmelo Hayes goes up to the main roster. Unsanctioned match. Grayson Waller, Johnny Gargano. Somehow, some way, Grayson Waller gets the victory there. Ladder match for the NXT Women's Championship. Two Hollywood-looking figures, Gigi Dolan and Tiffany Stratton. One of those two women is going to pull down that title. I believe it is going to be Tiffany Stratton, and Tiffany Stratton can be the thorn in the side of Gigi Dolan and Roxanne Perez, as Roxanne Perez's comeback from anxiety continues. Dragon Lee is probably going to win the North American Championship, at least from a business point of view, makes sense. I got to be honest, I kind of like the idea of Axiom slipping in there and taking that title. But if you look at that title and want to use it the way that they did for Carmelo Hayes, yeah, Dragon Lee getting that title and starting to build himself up towards a major or the NXT Championship title shot, not the worst idea in the world. Women's tag titles, Fallon Henley, Kiana James. Frankly, these women do not need those titles to tell the story that they are telling with Kiana and the Virgin. And in fact, them losing the titles may actually enhance that story coming later on down the line. So I'm going to go with Alba Fire and Isla Dawn winning that. I'm going to take Gallus retaining the tag team titles in the three-way that they have going on, and winners get control of Chase University. I hate to say it. I think the schism is taking over. A shame that will be, and hopefully Pretty Deadly's Couture is on time. Thank you, Producer John. Thank you, Producer Daniel. Thank you all out there for listening and watching, and I shall talk to you again after a while.